Our sermon today is on drugs and sex. And I get asked these questions a lot as a cult leader. What's going on with drugs and sex? Are there orgies? Do I get to have sex with you? Blah, blah, blah. Imagine if I had to have sex with every single cult member. We have thousands and thousands of cult members. Like, I am a proud whore, but like, damn. Right? Like, maybe let's talk about consent. Let's talk about these things. I cannot have sex with all of you. You can have sex with each other, and we're going to go ahead and talk about sex and drugs as they relate to Unicult. We do have a beautiful holiday coming up, the Day of Plants, which is on 4/20, which we celebrate in Unicult as an official holiday. We have a lot to cover in this sermon, even though the chapter is very short. I'm also going to be talking about addiction recovery as it relates to presence and addiction, and what addiction is, and why we seek out addiction, and why we have addiction plaguing our society and ourselves if you suffer from addiction. So if you have the book Fundamentals of Unicult, we're going to be talking from page 89. Again, a very short chapter, so I'll read the chapter and then we'll expound upon it. Drugs and sex. Consuming plant-based medicines is recommended, especially in the forms of food and tea. Use any substance you would like to, but don't let any substance use you. Feel the vibration that substance has on your moment and life. Balance your consumption with forms of creation. You may do any sexual act as long as you're acting in love and with total enthusiastic consent from all parties. Protect yourself from diseases, heartbreak, and unwanted pregnancies. Listen to your heart. You alone know what will truly fulfill you. Monogamy, polyamory, and other forms of relationships are all welcomed within Unicult, so long as they are accomplished with the greatest amount of love and harmony as possible. All right, so let's talk about sex first, and relationship configuration. A lot of people in Unicult are polyamorous, myself included, but a lot of people are monogamous as well. And both of these approaches to relationships are valid. Both of these approaches to relationships can be healthy, or they can be very disordered. In Unicult, we practice authenticity. And I think one of the reasons why so many people in Unicult happen to be polyamorous, and why I happen to be polyamorous, is because the authentic truth and living in your authentic truth is the best, highest way of being. Oftentimes, in our modern society and in our current reality, the idea of monogamy includes a repression and an ignoring of the true desires of the body and of the heart. If you're in a monogamous relationship for a very long time and you end up meeting someone who you really get along with, your choice in a monogamous relationship is either to break up with someone and pursue the new relationship, or to deny your pleasure and deny your true connection and continue to live monogamously. Most people are very conflicted by this difficult and impossible choice because they might really love their partner and they might have a really strong connection with this new person. So oftentimes what will happen is that the person will end up doing something deceptive and they will cheat on their partner. They'll think about, I want to get away with this. I still want to do this thing, but I don't want to deal with the consequences of having agreed to a monogamous relationship. And so they will do something deceitful and they will cheat behind their partner's back. Cheating is a crime against yourself. It's simply a crime against yourself. You might say it's a crime against your partner, who you've agreed to be monogamous with, but in fact, it's really a crime against yourself, because what you're saying to yourself, what you're saying to your child self is, you don't deserve what you want. You can't possibly be loved for what you want, right? Because if you're really authentic and you're really true to yourself and you're really true about what you want in your life, you would stand up for yourself and you would say, hey, I actually want both of these things. But oftentimes in our society, we actually don't have unconditional love, and so we punish and demean one another for having these desires, and we take it on as an attack on our self-worth. So if you're in a monogamous relationship and your partner comes to you trying to be authentic, and they say, listen, I'm having some strong feelings about someone else, and I would like to go pursue that as well as stay with you, most people would say, "Fuck you, get out of my house, you piece of shit," right? And they would throw all their clothes on the lawn. So most people don't feel comfortable and don't feel like they will be loved or they will be respected or they will be appreciated for their authentic reality, for their authentic truth, which is the fact that we love more than one person at a time. It happens. When we have authentic monogamous relationships, that is, when both parties come to the relationship in a beautiful, authentic expression of wanting to only be with each other, where that desire is simply felt and there really is no other desire to be with other people. And I don't just mean in a way of tricking yourself or of lying, but an authentic, true-hearted freedom where you could act and you know that you would be accepted to act in a polyamorous way, but you just don't want to, then that is true monogamy. So I really think that the only kind of authentic monogamy can actually come from a polyamorous relationship, and I don't necessarily think it should be the goal. Because as you are saying, oh yeah, I only want to be with you, I only want to be with you, you have to take in and remember all the brainwashing that's happened, that's told you that your self-worth depends on your partner being faithful to you, that you are a bad person if you have feelings for more than one person, etc., etc. We've been brainwashed into thinking that monogamy is the standard. There's nothing wrong with being monogamous unless you're repressing your true heart. The beauty of polyamory is the fact that it forces us to be true. It forces us to be authentic. It forces us to communicate where we would otherwise not communicate. It forces us to be accountable to one another. Again, you can have toxic polyamory just like you can have toxic monogamy. The goal here in Unicult is to be true to your heart, to tell other people what you want, to fight for your authentic truth, and to fight for your child self, and to say your true desires have a place in this world. Your true way of being, so long as it doesn't harm anybody else, is valid. And you're allowed to have as many lovers as you want. You're allowed to be in as many relationships as you want. You're allowed to be close with the people you want to be close with. And we have to accept ourselves and accept these desires so that we can break down our barriers of this is why I can't do Cam Church with my phone, because I get text messages that distract me. Okay, you break down your barriers of I forgot. That's okay. Your inauthenticity is what's killing you. Okay, so when you have brainwashing like we have in our society about each other and our self-worth and monogamy, we have to accept ourselves fully in order to have the unlocking of our true desires. I recently went through this experience where I took some time to myself. I went through a withdrawal, as you know, and we're going to talk about addiction here. And I like that sex and drugs are in the same chapter because my addiction happens to be sex and love, and other people have that same addiction, and a lot of people have drug addiction. You can have phone addictions, you can have addictions to anything, but I do think that sex and love is a very common addiction to have. We'll talk about addiction in a minute. But when you take the time to be still and to listen to yourself, and you take the time to cut out all external influences, your partner thinks you should be this way, and your parents think you should be that way, and society says you should be this way. If you can take the time to still those waters and to just say, what is it that I really want? And you cultivate an understanding about who you are and what you really want. What are your fantasies about? What if you could have anything in the world? You know, I have some wonderful like fantasies of living in a treehouse with like a bunch of lovers in my bed. Like, do I deserve that future? Sure, if it's the future that I want. Fantasize about your reality. What is it like? Is anyone being harmed? Make sure that there's no harm in your fantasy. And then once you're sufficiently programmed of your own desires, then you can enter the world again and do so carefully and do so with boundaries and do so with an understanding of like, no, like letting go of what you think you are. When you're brainwashed like we are with society, with our spirituality, with our religion, with our genders, with all of these things, we have to dig down deep and say, what is our true-hearted desires? What is our real, authentic desire that we want to have? And then when you go out into the world and you test it out, you have to still be open. What is my true desire? Did I really like that? Was that actually triggering? Did I actually feel connected in that situation? Was that actually just a surface level thing that really wasn't what I actually wanted? Actually, what I want is a deeper level. It's like another level that I thought that would represent. As you uncover these layers and layers, you find what you really want. What's really interesting, in my case, is that I have sex and love addiction. My sex addiction has ruled my life since I was 14, and it's been a driving force in my life for all of my relationships, for all of my activities, for all of my interactions. It's been a huge aspect of my life. I took this withdrawal time, and when I came back into the world, I was like, okay, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to have sex with whoever I want. And what I found is that I actually just wanted to hold people's hands more than anything. More than anything, I found that what I really wanted was a connection of subtle intimacy and of support. And the only way I used to know how to get that is through sex. Because I was brainwashed by society, because I didn't see other forms of support or intimacy other than a monogamous relationship or a casual relationship, or these boxes that we put ourselves into, these boxes that we force ourselves to relate to each other in, I didn't know that what I really wanted at certain times is just to hold people's hands. This opens me up to having all kinds of different relationships. I don't think of myself as being in any specific type of relationship with anyone. I try very hard to not attach myself to saying, oh, I'm dating this person or I'm not dating this person. I really like to see the authentic relationship that exists. If you can get to this level of seeing the authentic relationship that exists between you and your partner, between you and your friends, you'll see that these boxes that we have of relationships are very restricting. You might have friends who you actually love. You might have friends who you like to have sex with, but there's no romantic situation there. You might have friends who are very romantic with you, but you don't have any sexual chemistry. There's all kinds of different relationships, and the fact that we force ourselves to get all of our needs from one person, and we think that only one person can offer us the entire world of our intimacy and of our closeness within certain frameworks, is a disservice to ourselves. Humans have complex relationships with all kinds of people. And wherever you draw the line should be because you're drawing your boundary for your own safety and for your own well-being, not from a restriction and not because you're afraid that other people won't like you if you do certain things. You can have whatever types of relationships you want in Unicult so long as you get enthusiastic consent from all of your partners. Okay, now let's switch gears to drugs. Drugs are amazing, aren't they? What are drugs? I was thinking this. What is a drug? Is all food drugs? Because when I drink a smoothie in the morning, I feel different than if I eat fast food, right? So all of these things are having an effect on our energetic bodies, on our consciousness, and on our mood. When we're talking about eating, we're talking about ingesting, we're talking about drinking herbs, we're talking about smoking, we're talking about injecting, we're talking about all these different ways of getting chemicals, plants or chemicals, into our bodies. We are talking about altering our consciousness. We are always altering our consciousness with TV, with books, with movies, with media. This stream is likely altering your consciousness in a certain way. My energy is having an effect on your energy right now. You're in a relaxed state observing some interesting content about sex and drugs, and you're maybe curious. Your consciousness is affected by all things in your environment. Drugs are simply potent consciousness affectors. We have all of the potential that drugs offer us inside of our own consciousness. Drugs are simply unlocking an aspect that we already carry inside of us. It's a perception of being. There are certain days when I wake up and I become present in my body and I feel like I'm on drugs. And I say, today I feel kind of weird. And I look around and I get up out of the bed and I'm like, whoa, the floor feels weird. And I just try to like brush it off because I'm like, I know I'm sober, let's go. But if I had ingested a drug and I felt that same way, I'd be like, whoa, this drug is really hitting me. We have to become aware of our authentic changes in our energy. Because the idea of using drugs is really this idea of giving yourself permission to feel a certain way. I remember in high school, some of my friends played a trick on their friend who was a little bit straight-laced, and they gave her, she had never had any alcohol before, so they gave her non-alcoholic beer. And she was like, oh, I'm so drunk. And they were all making fun of her because they knew that she wasn't really drunk. She was just ingesting with the expectation to get drunk. And so she was feeling like a placebo, the effects of the non-alcoholic beer in her system. How much of our highs, how much of our drunkenness comes from our expectation to change our consciousness through the ritual of ingesting the medicine, through the ritual of ingesting the chemical, through the ritual of ingesting the herb. Placebos are real. Placebos really work. And our conscious expectation of the world really does shift it. It's not 100%, right? Because people do get dosed. When I was in college, somebody actually brought a tray of brownies for their class, and they were all pot brownies, and everybody ate them, and they got expelled. Even the teacher got the pot brownie, and everybody had to go home. But they didn't know what was happening to them because they didn't consciously choose to ingest the medicine, and so in effect they were actually poisoned. They thought, oh, I feel so weird, my head is spinning, I just feel strange, and they actually didn't even feel good from the pot brownies because they weren't warned, they didn't give permission to be feeling that way, they weren't ready for the interactivity in their body. Our connection to drugs, our connection to shifting our consciousness is an essential human right that we have. When you use cannabis, mushrooms, or LSD, or DMT, and it blasts open your consciousness to a new plane of existence, when it shows you the interconnectedness between yourself and the plant world, between your own spirit and the spirit of the earth, when it gives you the ability to communicate with spirits or other entities, you are simply being given permission. You're simply being given a little ladder to do something that you can already do. These drugs can be great medicines to help us break out of the confines of the boxes that we put ourselves into. These confines are restricting us, and drugs are a way of getting out of the confines. It is our permission. So what is an addiction? What is it when someone loves to binge drink and they black out or they take all the drugs? I had a boyfriend once, if we had any drug, he would take it. He could not have a drug in the house without taking it. He was an addict. What is it about people that causes them to want so badly to have that permission to escape their reality? It's trauma. It's childhood trauma. When we are children and we go through our lives, we are embodied in our present state. We're All right. We are one with our bodies, we are one with our surroundings, and we are one with the present moment. But when someone is abusing you, they're cruel to you, they yell at you, they yank you, they're physically violent, they yell at you, they tell you that you're wrong, they tell you that you're bad, you're in trouble, whatever, you are instantly taken out of the present moment and you're put into a fear state. From this place, you think, oh, I have to be aware that that doesn't happen again because that was really scary and that was really painful and that really didn't feel good. So I have to take myself out of the present moment and become stuck in linear time. Instead of the eternal now, you're now stuck in linear time and you're looking into the past and you say, okay, I did X, Y, and Z and that led to this. And in the future, I have to make sure I don't do X, Y, and Z so it leads to that. So you become aware of the timeline of the past and of the future and how they potentially relate. in this awareness, we start to manipulate ourselves into social expectation, into the expectation of our parents. And it's hard for us. If we have enough trauma, it can become very difficult to then become embodied again in our physical present states. It's difficult for us to become connected again to our bodies. It's difficult for us to become connected to our present moment, unless we are given permission with the use of drugs, unless we are given permission with the use of our electronic devices, unless we are given permission to use other people as our drugs, whatever your addiction ends up being. And addiction is often referred to as an escape. Drugs are often referred to as an escape. I don't think it's an escape. I think it's actually a rebringing into the body. It's the ability, it's the permission of saying, I don't want to think about the past and the future anymore. I don't want to be in this linear space taking responsibility for what happens to me. I want to lose myself in the feeling of the present moment by ingesting a mind-altering substance, by maybe using other people to escape that feeling, by getting a hit of a drug that allows us to be in the present moment. So to heal our addiction, to heal our diseased relationship with substances, because they're a wonderful tool, they can be a wonderful medicine. For us to actually heal our relationship with these substances or whatever your addiction is, we have to understand that our ability to be embodied is not only held in the hand of the drug. It's actually within us to learn, to relearn, to recalibrate our consciousness with the framework of our body, with the energetic grid of our space, and with the present moment. At this point, hopefully, you are out of the traumatic situation that you were raised in. For me, I have worked very hard to surround myself with loving, kind, patient people who can resolve conflicts simply and easily without making me too triggered. I've worked through so much of my own trauma and also have amazing friends and people in my life who are very kind and compassionate. So I no longer am directly in conflict with those things that are triggering me for the most part. Because I am safe, I can start to meditate on my own safety. I can start to heal my root chakra and my sacral chakra, and I can start to feel comfortable being who I am and being in the present moment. If you are an addict, you are constantly trying to escape the present moment because it is so scary for you to sit there and feel responsible for what might happen. This is my own interpretation of addiction, and I hope it's helpful to you. By practicing be here now, by practicing entering into your body and finding serenity within yourself, that's why that word is so important in addiction recovery programs. By finding serenity within yourself and your relationship to something higher, you actually can feel safe again by reparenting yourself with a divine energy, reparenting yourself with your trustworthy friends and family, to have a greater connection to your body and to your mind and to the present moment so that you can actually feel safe. From that place, just like I was talking about my addiction recovery with sex, right? And I came out of my withdrawal and I was ready to just binge, but I ended up not really actually wanting to binge because I learned how to meet my needs in other ways. You will find the same thing will happen with drugs. I'm not saying that you'll use them less. I'm just saying you'll use them with a different approach. You might use them with a higher level of consciousness. You might use them for different reasons. And you might actually use them as medicine rather than as an escape from the present moment, or as, it's not an escape from the present moment. It's your only way of feeling safe in the present moment. Drugs are not a bad thing. Our addiction comes from trauma. Our addiction comes from our limited society that doesn't allow us to be our true selves. And we have to see addicts as people, as victims of trauma, in order for us to move into a future where we don't have addiction, where we don't have addiction destroying families, where we don't have addiction destroying people's lives, where we don't have addiction causing homelessness. We don't have people stealing out of the Unicult donations bin. Addiction is a difficult thing to process, and I do recommend 12-step programs if you're struggling with addiction. 12-step program changed my life, gave me a lot of spiritual serenity and wisdom, and a lot of this sermon comes from my wisdom that I got from that sermon. From that experience, from that system, the 12-step program. I want to come back to this one sentence, balance your consumption with forms of creation. In Unicult, we talk a lot about consumption and creation. We say creation is the cure to consumption. And we say this not to demean consumption. Consumption is obviously essential to our lives. Consumption is very important to our sustenance. But in society, especially American modern society, we are consumers. We consume from our screens. We are constantly consuming. And the healthiest way to be in alignment with yourself and to be in alignment with the world is to consume as equally as you create. If you if you just consumed a bunch of food and you never pooped, that would be not a balanced thing. We have to consume, and then we also have to create. We have to have the output of what we're doing. So when you're using drugs, this is why this is relevant in this case. When you're using drugs, try to use drugs in a way that is creative. Can you actually use drugs in a way that helps inspire art? Can you use drugs in a way that helps inspire a higher way of being, inspires amazing conversations, inspires more love? What are you creating with the use of your drugs? What are you creating with the use of these chemicals or these substances? Sugar is very difficult. Sugar is a difficult addiction, which deserves discussion because it is insidious and it's in all of our food. Sugar addiction for me was an escape from my depression, but it actually perpetuated my depression. When I had depression, I ate almost entirely sugar, and I thought that because the sugar rush was giving me immediate relief from my depression, it made me feel good for just a moment. I thought that it was a good thing to do. So I was consuming mass amounts of sugar in this attempt to always stay high on the sugar, in an attempt to not crash, and I didn't realize that as I was consuming the sugar, it was actually perpetuating a very difficult depression, and a lot of my depression I would attribute to the consumption of high amounts of sugar. I currently don't eat very much sugar at all. I think I have like a couple pieces of chocolate a week and dark chocolate. And other than that, like, I eat fruit, and my life is so much better. I really, really, really recommend not eating as much sugar if you can help it. Cut down on your candy. It's a very difficult addiction to break, but it can be done. And it has a severe impact on your mood and on your health. It really does. Sugar is poison, unfortunately. And it's in so much more than you would ever expect. It's in pretty much everything. Like, if you think, oh, I'm going to go eat something savory, you're probably actually eating something that has quite a lot of sugar in it as well. There's a book I recommend, Salt, Sugar, and Fat, and it talks about the addiction. It's a trifecta addiction to make people addicted to their food, of putting salt, sugar, and fat into everything. High amounts of salt, sugar, and fat, sodium and sugar, and also different types of oils and fats. And if you have that trifecta, the food becomes relatively irresistible, and you want to just eat more and more of it, and it doesn't trigger your normal ability to like turn off your hunger, etc. Highly recommend that book. All right, let's do our closing prayer. Thank you for joining me for this beautiful sermon on sex and drugs. I hope it was enlightening to you. Just like with relationships, you can do any drug you want. I think there are some drugs that have a higher potential chance for addiction. I've seen heroin destroy lives. I've seen Oxycontin destroy lives. I've seen, I have like a family member who uses fentanyl at this point, and I don't know how long she'll live doing that. I have a lot of addiction, a lot of drug use in my family. I have a lot of drug use in my family. I was raised by an addict, and it's taken a lot for me to get to this point to say we should probably legalize all drugs. But we really have to heal addiction from the perspective of trauma. All the family members I have who are addicted to hardcore drugs had so much trauma in their lives. They were beat, they were raped, they had insane things happen to them as children, and I see the cycle continue. So break free from the cycle, get healing for your trauma, and go to therapy and do a 12-step program and start working out. Working out your core is a great way to heal trauma. Read The Body Keeps the Score, please. If you have trauma and you want to heal it, that book is an amazing tool. Let's do our prayer, and then I'll give you Unicult practice. Spirit of Uni, we are calling you here today to this beautiful room. We are calling for all addictions to be healed. We're calling for people to feel brave in trying drugs that might stimulate their consciousness. We are calling people to become aware of the altered states of consciousness that they experience day to day from all kinds of different things, solar flares and geomagnetic storms and the Schumann resonance and chemtrails, whatever, all the different things that are affecting our consciousness. We are calling for full control of our consciousness so that we can become aligned in the present moment and experience the glorious eternity which is happening in the present moment at all times. The mass amounts of data that are in every single texture and temperature and shape that is around us and color. We are calling to bless all of the Unicult members in this world and all of the viewers that we have. Uni bless. I'm going to keep burning this candle today because I like it. Uni bless. Thank you all so much for joining me. Your Unicult practice this week, if you have your Uni planner, you should have space for your Unicult practice. And this week I want you to maybe write down your feelings about relationships, your feelings about sex, and your feelings about drugs, and ask yourself, in what ways have you been acting in fear? In what ways have you been restricting yourself? And in what ways do you need to restrict yourself more? In what ways do you need to bring your energy back into the present moment? So there's a balance that's required of how much are you restricting yourself based in fear and how much are you letting yourself go because you're actually afraid of the present moment. It's actually fear on both sides. And where can you find more balance in your relationships, in your sex and love intimacies, in your friendships? Where can you find more authenticity? Where can you find more grounding and balance? Just ask yourself this question with sex and relationships. Ask yourself this question with drugs, with alcohol, and etc. The middle path, sure. The Unicult way. Up and up. Thank you all so much for joining me. Please remember to head over to the Discord server. If you're not an official member, you won't know what I'm talking about. But if you are an official member, you have access to the Discord server. You can go sign into the Discord server and join Uni Brunch in the video chat chill zone. And there you can share what you're having for breakfast and you can talk to other members. Oh, don't forget, you can also call the hotline, 1-833-UNICULT, to talk to an official member. If you're just sitting there sometime in the week and you're like, I kind of want to talk to a cult member, you can call 1-833-UNICULT. Thank you. Thank you. Uni bless. Uni bless.